Welcome back to the Explainer. Today we are bringing some serious energy and a strictly data-driven investigation to one of the world's most infamous maritime legends. Now, millions of vessels have crossed this region perfectly safely over the decades, right? But the mere mention of it still conjures up all these wild images of vanished ships and eerie, unexplained phenomena. But as we usually find when we actually crunch the numbers, the gap between popular legend and empirical fact can be absolutely massive. Today, we are relying entirely on the statistics behind ocean disappearances, looking at exactly what the research labs, global maritime databases, and historical records actually tell us. For generations, the narrative we've all been fed is that thousands of people vanished without a trace, just swallowed up by some inexplicable force in the Atlantic. But I want to plant a little seed of doubt in your mind right off the bat. When you strip away the cinematic high contrast, the dramatic lighting, and those spooky television soundtracks, was this ever actually a mystery to begin with? Okay, let's dive into this. Section 1, The Legend of the Triangle. Let's look at how this global phenomenon was actually built. Let's see how this builds over time, because media sensationalism literally snowballed over a century. Back in the 1910s, early newspaper clippings were reporting on lost ships, and, in the early days of maritime travel, that was unfortunately quite common. But fast forward to the 1950s, and early TV broadcasts start throwing in illustrations of UFOs and paranormal activities to explain these losses. By the 1970s, the whole thing just exploded into best-selling mystery books, completely cementing the myth in pop culture. It literally wasn't until the 2020s that researchers, armed with hard, factual statistics and modern data visualizations, finally started to loudly and effectively correct this entire century of misinformation. Section 2, Ocean Disappearances by the Numbers. Time to pivot sharply away from the spooky folklore and look at the cold, hard, empirical data. 0. Seriously, 0. This is perhaps the most massive, surprising, and absolutely crucial statistic of our entire investigation. When scientists calculate the statistical difference in the rate of unexplained vanishings in the Bermuda Triangle compared to literally any other heavily navigated ocean region on the planet, the difference is exactly 0. There is no mathematical anomaly whatsoever. In fact, major marine insurers, like Lloyd's of London, they don't even charge higher premiums for vessels passing through the Bermuda Triangle. Their actuarial data, which is built on centuries of global shipping records, proves that the accident rate is mathematically identical to any other heavily trafficked region. And this brilliantly illustrates that exact point. Even though it accommodates a massive percentage of the Atlantic's daily cargo and cruise traffic, disappearance rates here are completely normal. Actually, in some cases, they're even lower than places like the South China Sea or the Mediterranean Sea. When scientists analyze global maritime shipping databases, the triangle simply doesn't stand out. It's just a really busy transit corridor experiencing the exact same baseline rate of accidents as everywhere else. The math just doesn't support the monster. Those misleading headlines completely vanish when they're exposed to factual data. Where the media cried unexplained vanishing, modern weather and wind simulations come in and resolve the issue by showing us exactly what storm systems were present at the time. Claims of alien abduction? Those are easily replaced by documented historical records of navigational and compass errors. And those supernatural whirlpools, they are completely explained by mapped ocean currents like the Gulf Stream, which is notoriously swift and turbulent. The facts were always there, you guys. They were just buried under the flashy headlines. Section 3, Investigating the Famous Cases. Let's actually deconstruct the supposed proof behind the legend's most infamous disappearances. First up, the infamous Flight 19. The myth tells this wild story of a squadron of bombers vanishing into thin air on a perfectly clear day. But realistic historical recreations and the actual data tell a tragic but entirely logical story of cascading failures. Step 1, they flew into heavy rain and terribly low visibility. Step 2, the flight leader, Lieutenant Charles Taylor, who, by the way, actually had a documented history of getting lost, experienced severe compass malfunctions which led to fatal disorientation. In his actual radio transmissions, he flat out stated they were completely lost over the open ocean. And then, step 3, total fuel exhaustion. They didn't vanish into some interdimensional portal. They ran out of gas while lost in a massive storm and were forced to ditch in rough seas. Then we have the USS Cyclops, a massive Navy collier that vanished in 1918. Weather radar overlays and expert analysis point not to a curse, but to the harsh reality of nature. The Cyclops was carrying over 10,000 tons of incredibly dense manganese ore. When it was caught in enormous storm waves, the vessel suffered extreme structural failure under the immense stress of the sea. It simply disappeared beneath the surface, completely overwhelmed by natural physics. Historically accurate ship designs confirm that vessels of this exact class were highly susceptible to structural failure and rapid sinking in rolling seas. Section 4. The psychology of the myth. So if the statistics are this perfectly average, why did society believe this so fiercely for so long? Now, what's really interesting here is the incredible financial incentive behind this mystery. The Bermuda Triangle was, and honestly still is, a highly lucrative business. Just think about all those vintage bookstores filled with best-selling paperbacks on the topic. The dramatic, high-contrast newspaper headlines specifically designed to sell copies. Decades of speculative television documentaries and sensationalized magazine covers. An entire media ecosystem profited heavily from promoting the spooky mystery over the boring statistical facts. Honestly, the only thing disappearing was our patience for bad media narratives. So the crucial point is understanding the psychological mechanism that allowed that whole business to thrive in the first place. It's called confirmation bias. It is our natural human tendency to search for, interpret, and highlight information that confirms a belief we already hold, while completely ignoring any contradictory data. Once the idea of a cursed triangle entered the public consciousness, every single incident in that area was suddenly chalked up to the curse, no matter how perfectly mundane the actual cause was. Here's how it works. Sensationalized anomalies get the bright media spotlights and are repeated for literally decades. Meanwhile, the countless ordinary accidents, the totally mundane weather events, and mechanical failures happening in that exact same body of water, they just fade entirely into the background. Researchers have had to use verified historical records and raw statistics to painstakingly correct this skewed perspective and bring reality back into balance. Section 5. The final verdict. Let's solve this mystery once and for all. The data is in and the statistics are crystal clear. The greatest mystery of the Bermuda Triangle wasn't aliens or portals or sea monsters. It was the myth itself. It's the story of how a totally average stretch of ocean became the subject of a century-long global delusion, driven entirely by media profit and human psychology. It really makes you stop and think about the information we consume today, doesn't it? What other sensationalized modern legends are out there right now just waiting for a simple, data-driven reality check? So, next time you see a spooky headline, check the statistics. Keep questioning the narrative, and I'll see you on the next explainer.